Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. President Trump reiterating his desire to see $250 billion to refill the payroll protection loan program. Democrats holding it up as the money is running out per the CARES Act.
And now it's been so good that it's almost depleted, and we want to replenish it, and we can't get the Democrats to approve it. And that's a program that they and everybody else admit that are great.
For more on this, one other thing, what they do want to do,
What
they do want to do, of course, is throw money at you to stay unemployed, much like extending unemployment insurance for 4 months, paying some people more to be unemployed than they would to be employed,
right?
which doesn't make a lot of sense from an incentives perspective. And you heard previously, we've talked about it, the Socialist Spice Girls proposed minting up two $1 trillion coins. So you give everybody in the nation, including people who are illegally, $2,000 on a debit card, and then you give them $1,000 a month for at least for a year after the virus has officially been deemed over.
Oh, and these numbers just came in. 5.2 million more Americans just filed for unemployment claims.
As anticipated. So now that's 22 million, 22.5 million over 4 weeks.
I was going to do the math, Dan.
And since that's a lagging indicator, it's probably closer to 30 million.
Yeah.
People want to pay attention now, especially this is sort of second wave unemployment. So it's not just gig economy workers. It's not just frontline workers and quote unquote essential businesses anymore. You're getting to white collar workers who can work remotely. Think of, salespeople in big companies, for example. The proposal from Tim Ryan, former presidential candidate, Democrat from Ohio, and Ro Khanna from California, the Emergency Money for People Act, $2,000.
A month?
$2,000 until employment returns to pre-COVID-19 levels.
In some communities, that would go a long way.
$2,000 until employment returns to pre-COVID-19 levels. So we're going to go from 15 or 20% unemployment back to under 4%, and you're going to get $2,000 a month until we do?
I don't think so.
For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined by John Tamny. He is the editor of RealClearMarkets.com, director of the Center for Economic Freedom at FreedomWorks, and author of The End of Work. Yeah, tell me about it. Why your passion can become your job. He meant it in a positive way. We're getting to the end of work in the negative way. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So the payroll protection program, I mean, even some conservatives have gotten into rows with Steve Moore about this a little bit, don't exactly like all the way the program is designed. But if this is the choice, payroll protection program to try to keep the next million businesses afloat until states reopen and people on their payroll so we don't continue to see 5 million first-time employment filers every week, as opposed to $2,000 a month to not work. What's your choice?
Well, Matt, what would you do if you suddenly saw someone smothering me with a pillow? Would you rush to me with a ventilator? Or would you say, hey, person, get the pillow off of his face? I mean, to me, this whole...
Depends how much I like you. Yeah.
And if it's a my pillow.
The payment protection plan it's a non sequitur. If you'd had me on 6 weeks ago, would we have been talking about that? No, because people were working. And so why aren't they working today? Well, because politicians on the local, state, and national level chose to take the right to work away from people and take away from business owners their property as in their business. So you don't fight it. You don't fight what was a monumental, historical, jaw-dropping, something that will fascinate historians for millennia, government error, and hand these same clowns trillions more to basically not erase the problem they created. You go back to first principles. The problem was too much government in the first place. They suffocated the most dynamic economy in the world. Get their feet off of the neck of the economy.
Over at Vox.com, I'm reading a survey of economists, and you know how fun those are to read. And it finds that top economists, top men, leading economists from the University of Chicago's Booth School, there is little support to end social distancing too soon. That would actually hurt the economy, they say.
Oh, please.
Well,
How could the economy be
let's
hurt
look
any
at
more
that.
than it is?
Let's just briefly address economists. Back in 1979, when Margaret Thatcher was promoting privatization and reduced government spending and lower taxes, 364 eminent economists signed a letter to the Financial Times saying that her plans would be disastrous. If you were for tax cuts in the 1970s in the United States as an economist, you were a laugh right. You were an outlier, someone that no one talked to because you were low rent. Economists, almost to a man and woman, will tell you that the killing, maiming, and wealth destruction that was World War II actually stimulated the economy, that it had some kind of upside. So that economists feel something is of utter, it's totally immaterial. What they believe has nothing to do with any kind of interesting thoughts about why people prosper. So, okay, they think it'd be a bad idea. And so let's ask a question. Assuming freedom is decreed, that suddenly, we children are somehow allowed to direct our lives the way we want today or tomorrow, will anyone suddenly start close talking with people, hugging, shaking hands, going to the most crowded places possible? Or maybe because we don't want to get sick or potentially get sick, or maybe a slight chance of dying, maybe because we don't want to die, we might do things that will elongate our lives, and we don't need someone to tell us to do it. I mean, what is it about social distancing that we need politicians to force us to do that?
Right.
Yeah, and it's even more concerning than that is how many professors at the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business haven't read Bastiat. They're not familiar with the broken windows fallacy. I mean, wow, it's remarkable, isn't it? Let me ask you this proposal. And I know what you're saying we should do, and then there's what's actually going to happen or what's in the realm of possible. This proposal from Frederick Chen, he's a professor of economics at Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons. He proposes a contagion tax on businesses that reopen as the price of reopening to have to pay for possibly contributing to disease spread. That's a way to facilitate getting businesses open.
Gosh, more taxes.
Wow. To me, it's just a degree of bad ideas. So wait, government shut businesses down on the non sequitur that enforcing mass poverty would somehow be a way to fight disease and virus. So let's figure out a way to get government more money on the way back up. I mean, look, sure. I think it's so offensive that businesses would have to pay for the right to be back in operation. But I'm guessing many at this point would accept that just so that they could do what they're supposed to do, just so that they could get back to producing something. Let's never forget, what if your jobs were taken from you, Dan and Amy? You would be miserable. If I could not do what I do, I would lose it. My only solace amid this devastation is that I get to write and commentate.
Yeah.
And so implicit there among these politicians, who cares about these businesses? They could just take time off. This is their pride and joy. They've put years and years of effort. Do you know that Phil Knight spent the first 18 years of his time running Nike thinking that the next day would be Nike's last? As he acknowledges in his memoirs, every night I would tell my wife something that I didn't believe, that Nike would survive. And so suddenly they just think it's, we'll just shut down for a bit. Imagine what they're doing. There's no regard, because politicians don't have a history of having real work. There's no regard for how much these businesses mean for the owners of it. There's no regard for how much these jobs mean to these people.
You know, it's a great point. I just want to accentuate that because we haven't talked about that enough, and I'm ashamed that we haven't. This is not just financial. It's not just about
emotional. It's personal.
It's not just people's lives in terms of health and concerns about being able to pay bills and make ends meet. That work is soul craft. That's been completely lost in this discussion, and I'm so glad you brought it up. That work is soul craft.
Can we for once be honest? And obviously you guys are. Work is happiness. Mm-hmm. You know, Warren Buffett could give all of us a big check today to tell us to stop working, and we would live grand lives, but we would be miserable. I can't not do what I do.
Right.
And for politicians just to presume that they can just take from us and then pay us off with a piddling check, and somehow that's going to make us better. Work is our purpose. We're Americans. We descend from the crazies who crossed oceans and borders, desperate not for security, but for the chance just to be free.
Well, our
and
freedoms have all been taken
take
away.
This from people?
I mean, we can't. There's no freedom of assembly. I feel there's no freedom of religion, and it's I don't know how much longer Americans are going to be able to bend over and take it because I'm losing my mind. But what is your plans for reopening the economy? What would you suggest if you could
Well,
wave your
I mean,
magic wand?
yeah, wave my magic wand and
Yeah.
it would be freedom and everything. I think it needs to be stressed that the people who don't follow rules are every bit as important for finding a cure or finding the answer about this virus as those who do. Let me explain. Let's just say we got our way and they just waved them. Okay, you're free again to live your lives as you did before. Again, probably a lot of us would practice social distancing. Probably a lot of us would still wash hands. We'd probably avoid crowded places. But there would be some people who would say, oh, please. And they would go back to crowded businesses. Some businesses would say, we're not going to refuse anyone, come one, come all. But don't we realize that in doing that, A, we'd figure out what consumers want. We'd also figure out which way to lead them. But we'd also figure out, is it quite a bit more lethal for people to be next to one another? Isn't that a good bit of information to have right now? We need freedom, not just because it's some amorphous chant that appeals to the knuckle draggers, and count me as a knuckle dragger. We need freedom because that produces the information that makes it possible for them to find cures for these diseases. Economic growth is the ultimate fighter of disease, but it's also the ultimate creator of information. What we lack right now is information about how to fight the virus, to set people free so we can get that information.
As Dan Hanninger reminds us in the Wall Street Journal, laissez-faire translates to let us do it. Let us do it.
The thing he got wrong in there is he said this is a coronavirus. This is a coronavirus problem. No. This is a problem of government. Let's not dare blame a virus for what's happening here.
Well, and
this is a problem of government.
And to your point about private sector enterprises innovating and dealing with their workforce, because as you were intimating, guess what? They have every incentive for healthy employees and every concern about their employees that an MSNBC anchor or a politician has. And Ford Motor Company experimenting with wearable social distancing devices that could be deployed more widely once the car maker reopens idle manufacturing plants. A small group of volunteers at a Ford factory in Plymouth, Michigan, trying out wristbands that vibrate when employees come within 6 feet of one another. So, and it's sort of what Scott Gottlieb wrote about in the Journal earlier in the week, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner, about employees doing testing. Ultimately, the biggest lie that I keep prattling on about is that federal phases and state phases and grand plans, this is going to rise or fall with the individual employer and the individual group of employees at the workplace and neighborhood level.
Without question. Leave people alone. They'll do all sorts of interesting things to solve this. And the problem right now is too little freedom. And because of that, we're blind to what would make sense, what would work in terms of fixing it. It's so amazing that we keep making the same mistakes every time. And we're hearing this right now from the Wall Street Journal. There needs to be a plan in place. The problem is too much planning. Would we ever accept a plan for the economy during good times? No, we would laugh at that. We would say politicians can't possibly know all the information necessary. Yet suddenly for this, there needs to be a plan for reopening the economy. How about freedom? How about just try that for once and acknowledge that businesses have gotten that way because they've revealed an ability to understand the needs of customers. They've revealed an ability to understand how to serve their customers without killing them. That's kind of the first thing that they want to do. They want their customers to be healthy.
Yeah.
But in this instance, we need government to plan it. The very notion of that means that we've missed the point. The point is too much. That's what got us to this point of 22 million and counting who are out of work, because they decided rather than let people protect themselves, rather than let people do what they've been doing for millennia, as in elongating their existence, we need government to force things on people. And the result is disaster. The result is going to be poverty. It's going to be exponentially more people dying because government decided that freedom is a bad thing. And too many people in our world think that freedom is some sort of low-rent concept that the other people care about. No, freedom is what got us here.
He is John Tamny, editor of RealClearMarkets.com, director of the Center for Economic Freedom at FreedomWorks, and author of The End of Work, why your passion can become your job. You can understand, or you can feel John's passion, can't you? John, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thanks, John. Yep, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean.